So quickly, to really talk about COPA's new direction, one of the things that you'll see is we used to be called the Office Products. COPA was Canadian Office Products Association. One of the things that we are trying to do is change not the direction, but really our focus to what our tagline should be. And if you think about it in terms of where we are going, and I know I have just a simple example. I asked my wife what office products means to her, and it really means that cupboard where you stick all of your sticky notes, your pens, and your pencils. And my wife's been in the working industry for 25 years. Same thing, I asked my son, who's been working now for 2 years, and I asked him what office products means, and he says, well, it's my tablet, my iPhone. Totally different sense of feeling of what one generation has to the other, and where we are going. And so if you think about it, COPA is really moving. We're having to adapt very quickly. If you think about the new members that we've already signed up for 2013, there's a list of them in terms of, not their names, but the categories that they're falling into. We're not seeing the traditional office products organizations any longer. What we are seeing now, social media providers, cloud providers, janitorial solution providers, IT and web support organizations, financial organizations, search engine organizations, event planners, organizations selling candy and coffee. Those are the type of members that are joining COPA today. Those are all office solutions versus what traditionally used to be your pens and pads and binders and folders. So again, the key thing is adapting and being able to adapt. So what does this all mean? Well, if you take a look at where the industry is going, what used to be a lot of paper is now becoming digitized, and the digital world is starting to take control. Now, how does this impact the office product industry? So a question I've got for you is, with less paper being used today, and if you think about it, less production of paper, less printing, it really transcends. How does that impact your business? Are you in the writing instrument business? How does that affect your business? Are you in the binding business? Do you sell staplers? Do you sell scissors? Do you sell machines? How does having less paper impact your business? Definitely a question for you to consider and to be able to answer. Just to take you through a snapshot of what COPA has produced. So we've been producing data reports for probably, my guess is about 12 years now. It's not a guess, I know we've been doing it for 12 years. And we've been collecting data from all of our resellers. So when you take a look at Staples Advantage, Lyrical, traditionally we did Basics, Novexco, we've collected data from all of the major resellers. And for going back 12 years, we were taking that data and bringing it back, producing reports for all of our resellers. 2 years ago, we made a decision to provide that data to our vendors who wanted to purchase that data. So we took that data and made it available in certain categories, and the categories that are listed there, you'll see them there. And again, they're going to be provided on our website if you need this, so you don't have to take any notes. But these are the reports that we are producing today. Again, they're not granular today, but that's where we are going. But today we do have reports that we are producing, and we will continue to produce these reports as they are for a short period of time until we transition slowly and surely to to the future of where we need to be. We also produce white papers, and you'll see our white papers that'll talk about the industry. And we'll put up a couple of white papers on our website. I believe there's one now, but you're going to see a couple more that'll tell you and show you what's been happening in certain categories over the last 3, 4, 5 years in terms of how the industry has been decreasing in terms of your traditional office products continually maintains 1 to 2% decrease over the last 3 years. But there are other areas that are growing when you take a look at our resellers' numbers. So if you take a look at confectionery, you take a look at janitorial supplies, you take a look at the computer supplies. So there are specific areas that are increasing while there are traditional office products that are decreasing. So before I introduce Rael, just a quick snapshot in terms of what we're trying to build. Definitely really, COPA is a non-for-profit organization. So when you consider the reports that we're producing today versus where we want to go and where we need to be, if you take a look at some of our competitors, that are producing reports today. Our plan is to make everything that we produce very cost effective for all of our members. Our committee sees everything that we do. You as members really drive the whole program. We really work for you, and everything that we produce in a cost-effective manner for our members. So in terms of being able to ask our resellers and manufacturers to collaborate, it's very important that moving forward, collaboration of data and content is where the future really holds. If you think about it, even to go back, and I try to think of an analogy in terms of what does collaboration really mean. If you think about even the days that you were going to school, if you remember your elementary or high school days, you always had certain segments of the classroom. You always had the kid that would sit down and cover his work, and no one would see it as he was working, versus the group of kids that would work together in a group and share ideas and be giggling in the background and having a good time. It's the two groups, and I think what we need to do is move towards being a collaborative group, sharing ideas and really understanding what everybody is doing in a professional way. Again, when you're sharing, it's not about creating conflicts, but it definitely is about creating synergies that help the entire industry. Okay, so that is my part. I'm going to introduce at this point in time. Oh, do we want to show a video first?
Yeah, or we introduce and I'll get the video.
Okay, we're going to talk about the status of the paper market real from Domtar.
Sector was 15%. Not bad. Not bad at all. But when you take a look at our market share in the second quarter, 45%.
Well, we are a little distance away from having the paperless society still, so we're not quite there. I thought what we'd do today is take a look at the industry, the uncoated free sheet industry as we see it today and where it's been in the last few years. But before the uncoated free sheet, I think it's important that I define what uncoated free sheet means. Basically, uncoated free sheet means it's lignin free, which means that it's pulp that's been bleached. Therefore, it's not groundwood type paper. Groundwood is your newsprint type paper, and uncoated free sheet is basically your copy paper, your tablets, and so on. So that's basically the industry I'm talking about this morning. If we look at demand in the last few years, but let's take a look at just this year alone. Demand of uncoated free sheet, and again, uncoated free is basically your tablet, your copy paper, your bristles, your colors, your tags, your file folder. It's also your book paper. It's your printing type papers for your annual reports, for anything basically that has to do with the business environment. So uncoated free sheet demand this year, these numbers are as of the end of October. November data is coming out probably tomorrow, but is down 4.3%. If we look at the mill inventories per se, our data, our inventory days are still at about 26 days outstanding, same as they were last year, same as they were the year before. So what that means is that although the market is shrinking, we've taken a lot of capacity out. We continue to take a lot of downtime in the industry. Therefore, less orders. You tend to take a little bit of downtime. At an operating rate of 90%, when we operate at 94 to 95%, we're operating at full capacity. You need about 5% of capacity downtime to maintain the equipment. Changes in basis weight or whatever it is. So there's about a 5 to 6% capacity that's never utilized in the first place. So if you're operating at 94, you're operating at full capacity, and there's always that famous word, it's the famous the allocation word. We haven't seen that and probably won't see that in a long time. So if we look at the uncoated free by sector, cut size is basically your copy paper. It's at 8.5, 11, 8.5, 14, 11, 17. It's in that category, which is the category you're probably the most familiar with. That sector is down 3.3% so far this year. Offset and opaques, and again, the offset and opaque sector, that's your book type paper, that's your Bristols, your colors, your tags, that falls into that category. That sector is down 5.8%. Now, as bad as that may sound, it's actually pretty good compared to last year. Last year we were down about 8.5% in that sector alone. A lot of this has to do with technological change. There's no question about that. The internet has had an impact on all of us. But also in this sector here in the print community, the offset and opaque demand, there's something else that's happening there. A lot of us are now paying our bills online, so that means that you're not getting the invoice. There's 2 envelopes less. There's then the stub that you're sending back with your payment and the check. You multiply that by the amount of people in North America, and that's a whole lot of paper that is no longer being used. I know a lot of companies use that as an environmental phrase, but I'll tell you, it's cost cutting more than anything else. So, but the other thing too in this sector, in the offset and opaque area, is the equipment itself. A few years ago, not that long ago, 10 years or so ago, on the Heidelberg presses or the Man Rollins or whatever, you needed a certain minimum run to make it economical, to make it viable. And with today's equipment, with the Xerox, the Canons, the Osays, all of that equipment can produce a quality similar to a printing press and in a much smaller quantity. So printing on demand is really here. So where if you needed to print 5,000 books at one time to make it economical, you can print 5 books now. That book will cost you a little bit more, but the overall cost is a lot less. And so therefore, and when you were printing 5,000 books, you weren't necessarily selling all of the 5,000. So there was probably a certain percentage of the books that would actually be recycled and brought back to the publishers for recycling and whatever. That is shrinking, not because in the publishing industry specifically, they're really printing exactly what they need and only what they need. If they need to go to reprint, it's so easy with today's equipment and the quality that's produced on those equipment. So that's a fundamental change in that category as well. So again, we talked a little bit about the envelope sector. Every time we pay something online, and direct mail was hit hard in 2008, 2009 during the recession. It's starting to pick up a little bit, but we're not quite where we were in 2007 and prior. Forms bond is a continuous decline. It has been for the longest period of time, but it's still a very important sector. If you look at these thousands of tons in the industry, that's still a very important sector. And then the other category, that's your tablet type paper, your scribblers, and so on. This is a graph of the last 3 years. This really shows the fluctuation and the decrease in demand in uncoated free. The blip here in October, that might be just because last year there was 2 days of shipping less than there was this year. So that may adjust itself pretty quickly in the November data. This is basically the same chart, but again for a copy paper, for the copy paper sector. So again, the October blip may readjust itself in this week when that comes out. This is a look at the industry as we are today, who the players are, and where we fit from a capacity perspective. It's not necessarily market share, but a capacity share by company. So it's completely different than what it was 10 years ago. There's been a lot of consolidation in the industry, and one of the reasons for it is this. If you look back to the year 2000, this is from 2005 to today, but if you look back to the year 2000, that chart was slightly over 16 million tons. We are going to finish the year at probably 10 million tons or so this year. So in the last 10 years, we've lost about 1/3 of our equipment and our capacity. We've shut down a lot of mills, especially if you're Canadians. You know you can go through a lot of the towns where there used to be mills and there no longer is. And the reason for it is because of a change in demand. So we've, as an industry, have adjusted accordingly, And although there is nothing for next year announced at this point, with a 90% utilization, you know that at some point people are looking at equipment at this time. Here's the demand forecast. Again, this is the PPPC, which is the Pulp Paper Products Council, which was at one time the Canadian Pulp and Paper Association. They are pretty accurate in looking at the North American market, but also they look at the world market and are pretty accurate in predicting. They had predicted 4.0 decrease. We're looking at a 4.3 decrease, so they're pretty well on track with how they view the market. This is going to be a continued decline. We have to manage this, but it is what it is, and we're looking at about a 3% decline again next year in the overall paper capacity. And again, the printing sector is probably going to be more impacted than anything else. Here again is the demand forecast for next year based on category. Copy paper, we're looking at a slight decrease in the decrease. So we're looking at about a 2% decrease next year versus we're closer to 3 this year, but there was a prediction of 2.7. We may end up the year near there as well. Offset, again, we're pretty well online with the forecast, and we're looking at about another 5% decline next year as well. The envelope, that decrease may slow down a bit. Hopefully, direct marketing will pick up a bit, and that should help that industry some, although postal rates hikes really have a huge impact on that. So hopefully we can keep those postal rates at the levels that they are now. This is the operating rates so far again this year, and the first one is your uncoated free sheet. We're operating at about 90%. This year we were operating at about 90% last year. The second bunch of bars is the uncoated mechanical, and the uncoated mechanical is your newsprint type. Coated wood free is basically your high-end coated paper, the stuff that your LCBO magazine type of product. That's your coated wood free. And then the coated mechanical is your typical product that is used in your magazines. Now, in the coated wood free, these guys tend to, sometimes if they're running like they are now, they tend to live the coaters and then come and bother us in our sector. So hopefully we can get, buy more magazines, let's get them busy so they can stay out of our territory. Now, I thought I'd just share a few slides here, and this is almost at the end of my section here, but market share by sector of business papers. It's an interesting slide for the last 2 years. The data for this year is not quite in yet, but you see that there's a slight shift. The merchant community is losing some share of the business paper, but the guys that are gaining it are the office store retailers. Although when you're in a shrinking market, you're also in a market that seems to be getting a little bit more of the share of that sector. And the same thing with the rest. So this is available to you afterwards. And this is by brand. I thought I put that in because mill brands are always important to us. But as you see, we tend to be losing our position on your shelves with the mill brands as the OEMs are as well. But your private labels seem to be picking up in share. So I thought it'd be just an interesting chart to put up. And that's basically my presentation.